Some structures have survived powerful earthquakes for thousands of years. How did ancient builders master earthquakes long before modern engineering existed? This video uncovers their remarkable secrets. You will learn the ingenious principles that allowed civilizations from Peru to Japan to build structures that could dance with the Earth's violent tremors. We will explore how they made stone walls flexible and designed buildings to sway rather than shatter. By the end, you will see the ancient world not as primitive, but as a place of profound and sophisticated innovation. How did they learn to build with such foresight, and what have we forgotten in our own time? What does true resilience actually look like? This idea of ancient seismic resilience forces us to rethink a common modern assumption. We often believe that protecting buildings from earthquakes requires advanced materials like steel and concrete or complex computer models. Yet for countless generations, builders in the most tremor-prone parts of the world achieved remarkable safety without any of it. Their resilience was not born from high technology, but from a profound and hard-earned understanding of the land itself. It was a knowledge built through careful observation, through noticing which structures survived and which fell, and through the slow, painstaking refinement of techniques over centuries. As experts like archaeologist Dr. John Otzendorf have pointed out, this was not a sudden invention. It was a legacy of learning, often emerging from periods of hardship, that was then passed from master builders to apprentices. This deep, empirical wisdom allowed entire cultures to not just survive, but to flourish in places where the ground could turn violent at any moment. Their success was written in stone, and it all began by listening to the earth. This leads us to the very ground beneath their feet, to the volatile and beautiful landscapes that demanded such genius in the first place. These were not quiet lands. From the jagged peaks of the Andes to the sun-drenched islands of the Mediterranean and the soaring foothills of the Himalayas, the earth itself was alive and restless. It was within these breathtaking but volatile landscapes that some of humanity's most brilliant civilizations took root. They did not choose these locations in spite of the danger, but often because of the incredible fertility and strategic advantages such dynamic geology provided. The constant, looming threat of earthquakes became an unavoidable fact of life, a powerful force that could not be ignored. This relentless environmental pressure forged a unique kind of genius. It transformed entire regions into vast, open-air laboratories for seismic design, where failure was catastrophic and success was measured in generations of safety. On the island of Crete, the Minoans constructed magnificent multi-story palaces with complex layouts, and evidence suggests they used techniques that allowed these structures to withstand repeated shaking. Far to the east, ancient Chinese builders developed an incredibly sophisticated system of interlocking wooden brackets, known as dugong, which allowed pagodas to sway gracefully with a tremor's energy rather than fight against it. In these crucibles of tectonic activity, innovation was not a luxury. It was a direct and non-negotiable requirement for survival. The most effective methods were remembered, refined, and passed down because the cost of forgetting was simply too high. This hard-won wisdom began not with the structure itself, but with the very spot upon which it was built. The first and perhaps most crucial principle they mastered was the art of listening to the land, of choosing a foundation that offered not just stability, but a kind of partnership with the Earth's immense power. This geological foresight was a form of ancient genius, a first line of defense written directly into the landscape. Before a single stone was cut or a timber was raised, these master builders engaged in a profound act of listening. They learned to read the subtle language of the earth, choosing their construction sites not for convenience alone, but for an inherent stability that could withstand the planet's tremors. They instinctively understood the critical difference between building on solid, unyielding bedrock and the peril of loose, water-saturated soils. In a seismic event, these soft soils can behave like a liquid, a process known as liquefaction, dramatically amplifying the shock waves and dooming any structure placed upon them. The builders of Machu Picchu demonstrated this wisdom perfectly. They did not simply find a flat space on a mountain. They intentionally carved their sacred city into a solid granite ridge, a natural prow of stone that acts as its own seismic isolator. During an earthquake, this entire ridge can shift and sway independently from the surrounding slopes, a brilliant natural defense system engineered by the land itself. Centuries earlier and a world away, Roman engineers adhered to the same fundamental principle. Their monumental aqueducts and temples were almost always founded on firm, stable ground, their deep understanding of foundation integrity declared in the enduring strength of their ruins. This knowledge was so vital it became embedded in cultural memory, passed down through oral traditions and building customs that guided generations to the safest ground. It was a preventative wisdom that averted disaster long before construction even began. With the most resilient site carefully chosen, the builders then turned their ingenuity to the next critical step, the art of crafting a foundation that could truly dance with the earth. The ground itself was only the beginning of their defense. Once they had chosen a stable site, these ancient builders performed a kind of architectural magic. They understood that to fight the Earth's motion was to invite destruction, so they chose instead to yield, to create foundations that could sway and absorb the shock. This principle of flexible isolation is where their genius becomes truly visible. In Japan, the iconic pagodas, some standing for over 1,000 years, hold a secret at their core. A massive central pillar known as a shinbashira runs up through the center of the structure, but it is not nailed or fixed to the building's frame. Think of it as a giant, suspended pendulum. When an earthquake strikes, the flexible wooden frame of the pagoda sways in one direction, while this heavy central pillar swings in the opposite direction, acting as a counterweight that dampens the violent shaking and prevents the tower from collapsing. It is a breathtakingly elegant solution. Across the world, the Inca stonemasons of the Andes achieved a similar result through different means. Their massive stone walls, built without mortar, often feature a slight inward curve at the base. More remarkably, they frequently constructed these walls on a bed of loose gravel or crushed stone. During a tremor, the stones in the wall could shift and settle minutely, and the gravel layer beneath would allow the entire foundation to move and redistribute the energy, effectively isolating the structure from the worst of the shaking below. It is astonishing to realize that these ancient techniques are the direct ancestors of our modern base isolation systems, which use layers of rubber and steel to separate a building from its foundation. The brilliance is in the shared philosophy, not the specific materials. They did not seek to create an unbreakable fortress, but a resilient partner to the Earth's power. And this philosophy of intelligent flexibility extended far beyond the foundation, shaping the very walls and forms that rose into the sky. This architectural wisdom went far beyond the foundation, shaping the very geometry of their most iconic structures. Ancient architects understood a fundamental truth of physics, one that modern engineers still rely on today. A low center of gravity and a balanced, symmetrical form are a building's best allies against chaos. They designed monuments that hugged the earth, their mass distributed in a way that made toppling nearly impossible. The pyramids of Egypt and Mesoamerica are the ultimate expression of this principle. Their immense, wide bases and gracefully tapered sides create a form that naturally channels seismic energy downward and outward, dissipating its force into the ground. They are not fighting the earthquake, they are using their own immense weight and perfect shape to simply outlast it. Similarly, the grand temples of ancient Greece achieved stability through a masterful combination of mass and geometric harmony. Their heavy stone entablatures, the horizontal structures spanning the tops of the columns, were supported by dense, closely spaced pillars. This created a rigid, box-like structure that was incredibly heavy at its base. When the ground shook, the entire temple was designed to sway as a single, cohesive unit. There were no weak points, no unsupported corners to snap or crumble first. The mathematical precision evident in the layout of these temples, the exact ratios and perfect alignments, was about far more than beauty. It was a deliberate and critical strategy for survival. This geometric intelligence meant that the destructive energy of a tremor was not concentrated in one spot, but was spread evenly throughout the entire structure, allowing it to move as one and settle back into place once the shaking stopped. This brilliant interplay of form and force reveals that their mastery was not just in the shape of their buildings, but in the very substance they were made from. The very substance of these ancient walls holds another profound secret. A structure's true resilience lies not only in its shape, but in the intelligent character of the materials from which it is built. Ancient engineers possessed a deep, almost intuitive mastery of material science, meticulously selecting and preparing stone, wood, and brick not for rigidity, but for a dynamic combination of strength and flexibility. They understood that a building must breathe with the earth, and their material choices made this possible. The most stunning example comes from the Incas, whose polygonal masonry is a marvel of seismic engineering. Instead of using uniform, rectangular blocks, they carved massive, irregular stones with complex, interlocking shapes. These stones fit together so perfectly that not even a razor blade could slide between them, yet no mortar was used to bind them. When an earthquake struck, this was its greatest strength. The entire wall could shift, the stones grating and settling against one another, dissipating the tremor's energy through countless tiny movements. Once the shaking ceased, the intricate puzzle of stone would simply settle back into a state of perfect equilibrium. It was a wall designed to dance and then to stand firm once more. A similar philosophy of flexible reinforcement emerged thousands of miles away in Anatolia, where Hittite builders developed timber-laced masonry. They would weave horizontal beams of wood through the courses of their stone walls, creating a flexible grid within the rigid stone. Think of it as the skeleton of a building where the wood acts like ligaments, allowing the structure to flex and sway without fracturing. During a quake, the stone might crack, but the wooden lattice would hold everything together, preventing catastrophic collapse and allowing for repairs. These were not just walls, they were cohesive, living systems engineered to absorb and redistribute immense energy. The choice of material and its meticulous preparation transformed a static monument into a dynamic partner with the forces of nature. This brilliant interplay between substance and form leads to the final, overarching principle, the ingenious way all these elements were assembled into a single, resilient whole. These interlocking stone puzzles represent the pinnacle of ancient seismic design. The technique is known as dry stone construction, and its genius lies in what is missing: mortar. By meticulously carving massive stones to fit together with impossible precision, builders created structures that behaved as a single, monolithic entity during an earthquake. At the citadel of Mycenae, the famous Lion Gate is framed by colossal limestone blocks, each one cut with such geometric accuracy that they have remained locked in place for millennia. The sheer weight and perfect friction between these stones create a powerful inertia, forcing the entire wall to sway as one solid mass rather than a collection of loose pieces. This unity is what dissipates the energy of a tremor, spreading the force evenly across the whole structure. But perhaps the most breathtaking example is found high in the Andes at Saxehuaman. Here, the Inca stonemasons constructed zigzagging walls from blocks so enormous, some weighing over 100 tons, yet carved with such intricate, jigsaw-like joints that the walls are virtually indestructible. During seismic shaking, these complex geometries prevent the blocks from sliding out of place. The stones grate and shift minutely against one another, absorbing the violent energy, and then settle perfectly back into their original positions once the shaking stops. It is architecture that is alive, breathing with the Earth's movements. This method required a staggering level of skill and patience, a testament to a culture that invested generations in building for permanence. The result was not a rigid, brittle wall, but a flexible, dynamic one that could truly dance with the earth. This intricate assembly of stone, designed to move in harmony, hints at an even more active form of control, where builders did not just allow movement, but actively managed it through the use of clever counterweights. This manipulation of mass reveals a sixth brilliant principle: the ancient use of counterweights and dampers. Long before modern skyscrapers installed sophisticated tuned mass dampers, builders were harnessing the same fundamental physics with breathtaking simplicity. We have already seen the Shinbashira, the massive central pillar in a Japanese pagoda, acting as a giant suspended pendulum. But this idea of using a heavy, moving mass to cancel out a building's sway appears in other, more mysterious forms. Some researchers studying Stonehenge have proposed that its enormous stone lintels, perched atop the great uprights, did more than just connect the dots. Their incredible weight, locked into place, may have helped to stabilize the entire ring, acting as an inertial damper that absorbed vibrational energy from the ground or even the wind. Similarly, the towering obelisks of ancient Egypt, while deeply symbolic, also functioned as immense fixed counterweights. Their profound mass, rooted deep in the earth, would have resisted movement, helping to anchor the sacred precincts around them against tremors. These were passive systems requiring no power or maintenance, yet they worked for centuries. They effectively reduced the violent amplitude of a building's sway, preventing the kind of structural fatigue that leads to collapse. This was not guesswork, it was a proto-scientific grasp of physics, an intuitive understanding that to control motion, you must work with mass and momentum. This deep, accumulated wisdom was so vital that in some cultures, it was eventually codified into a formal set of rules, a kind of ancient building code that guided entire civilizations. This formal codification of knowledge marks a pivotal moment in our story. While many cultures developed seismic wisdom through trial and error, the Romans took the revolutionary step of writing it down. The architect Vitruvius, in his monumental 10-volume work, De Architectura, laid out explicit engineering principles for constructing in earthquake-prone regions. His writings read like an ancient building code, advising on everything from the necessary depth of foundations to the proper methods of wall construction. He championed the use of flexible materials like timber to absorb shock, and most critically, prescribed a specific mortar recipe that would change construction forever. This was a mix of lime and pozzolana, a volcanic ash that, when combined, creates a concrete capable of not only curing underwater, but of withstanding immense seismic shocks. The Roman harbors that still stand today, their concrete piers resisting 1,500 years of waves, are a testament to the power of this material. Vitruvius was not just sharing personal tips, he was systematizing a body of empirical knowledge, blending direct observation with architectural theory to create a replicable standard. His precepts were disseminated across the vast Roman Empire, guiding the construction of aqueducts, temples, and amphitheaters from Britain to North Africa. This created an enduring legacy of resilient public infrastructure that held entire civilizations together. This formal, almost scientific approach stands in fascinating contrast to the more experimental, locally honed methods of other ancient builders. Their wisdom was not recorded in books, but was instead woven directly into the fabric of their most sacred and enduring structures. This slow burn of innovation was the true engine behind ancient seismic design. These were not sudden eureka moments, but a painstaking process of trial and error refined over countless generations. When a structure failed, it was not simply cleared away. The ruins became a classroom. Master builders would meticulously examine the pattern of collapse, studying which walls had crumbled and which joints had failed. They learned that a perfectly rigid building often shattered, while one that could flex had a chance to survive. This direct observation of failure was then translated into new rules for construction, a continuous feedback loop written in stone and timber. We can see this evolutionary process literally layered into the earth at ancient sites. At Knossos on Crete, archaeological excavations reveal multiple distinct phases of the Great Palace. With each rebuilding effort, the design becomes more sophisticated, the layouts more stable, and the techniques for managing seismic force more refined. The same story is told in the buried cities of the Indus Valley, where the foundations of Mohenjo-Daro show clear evidence of architectural adaptation in response to past upheavals. This knowledge was too vital to be left solely to builders. To ensure it survived, cultures often encoded these hard-won lessons into their very myths and oral traditions. Stories of gods shaking the earth or of great floods served as powerful metaphors, carrying within them the collective memory of past disasters and the crucial importance of building with foresight. This cultural refinement created solutions that were not just technically brilliant, but perfectly adapted to their specific environment. And nowhere is this evolutionary mastery more breathtakingly clear than in the stonework of the Inca. The imperial Inca structures of the Andes are a living library of seismic wisdom. Their stonework is not just architecture, it is a dynamic response to a volatile earth, a language written in granite and limestone. The most defining feature is their polygonal masonry, where every single stone was individually shaped to fit perfectly with its neighbors. This created a wall with no continuous straight lines or uniform right angles. Why does this matter so much during an earthquake? In a conventional wall with straight mortar joints, the energy from shaking concentrates at the corners, creating stress points that inevitably crack and fail. The Inca system eliminated these weak points entirely. The complex, interlocking puzzle of stones created countless tiny joints, forcing the seismic energy to disperse and travel along a chaotic, meandering path until its destructive power was simply dissipated. This principle of distributing stress is amplified by another brilliant feature, the consistent use of trapezoidal shapes. Every single doorway, window, and niche in an Inca building is wider at the bottom and narrower at the top. This form is inherently stable under lateral shaking. While a rectangular opening can easily rack and collapse, the trapezoid simply settles more firmly into itself, its geometry naturally resisting deformation. Combine this with the walls themselves, which often lean slightly inward, and you have a structure with an exceptionally low center of gravity, a form that hugs the ground with immense stability. This entire architectural language was a direct, hard-won answer to the violent subduction zone earthquakes that define the Andean region. The result is a built environment that has weathered 500 years of immense seismic forces, a testament to a culture that learned to build in conversation with the earth itself. This Andean mastery of stone finds a fascinating parallel in a completely different part of the ancient world, where builders used a radically different material to achieve the same resilient goal. The pagoda's resilience is a masterpiece of dynamic engineering. While the Inca used interlocking stones to create flexible walls, Japanese temple builders achieved a similar result by embracing the inherent qualities of wood. Their iconic 5-story pagodas, some standing since the 14th century, are not rigid towers but intricate wooden machines designed to dance with the earth. The secret lies in a brilliant system of counteracting forces, a built-in dance partner for every tremor. At its heart is the Shinbashira, a massive central pillar. This log, sometimes as thick as a mature tree, is the structure's spine, yet it is not fixed to the surrounding floors. It either hangs suspended from the very top of the pagoda or rests delicately on a single stone base, completely disconnected from the wooden frame that wraps around it. This is the critical detail. When an earthquake strikes, the pagoda's frame, built with flexible joints, sways in one direction. Simultaneously, the heavy, free-standing Shinbashira begins to swing in the opposite direction, acting as a giant passive pendulum. Its momentum actively counteracts the building's sway, damping the violent vibrations before they can build to a destructive crescendo. The effect is amplified by the pagoda's layered roofs. Each tier, with its wide, overhanging eaves, is heavy with ceramic tiles. These roofs do not simply sit on the structure, they function like a stack of inverted pendulums, each one swaying with its own rhythm, further scattering and dissipating the earthquake's energy across the entire form. The result is a building that gracefully absorbs and neutralizes forces that would shatter a rigid, modern structure of the same height. It is a breathtakingly elegant solution, a form of bio-inspired design long before the term existed, mimicking the way a tall, flexible reed sways in the wind without breaking. This profound understanding of natural forces points toward a deeper truth, that ancient intelligence was often drawn from observing the world itself. This deep connection to the natural world was their most profound teacher. Ancient builders did not see themselves as separate from their environment, but as an integral part of it. They observed that a tall reed survives a storm by bending, while a rigid tree snaps. They noticed how a bird's lightweight, hollow bones provide incredible strength without brittleness. These were not formal scientific studies, but a constant, intuitive process of learning from the world around them. The resulting architecture often feels alive, as if it grew from the earth rather than being imposed upon it. The curved, organic walls of a Minoan palace, for instance, seem to echo the rolling hills, while the tiered, sweeping roofs of a Japanese pagoda mirror the layered canopy of a forest. This was a form of intuitive biomimicry, a design philosophy that borrowed resilience from forms perfected by nature over millions of years. It is why so many ancient seismic solutions feel so elegant and effortless. They were not fighting physics but cooperating with it, just as nature does. This vast repository of tested solutions, observed over countless generations, provided a blueprint for survival that was both brilliant and beautifully simple. This deep, instinctual wisdom was so powerful that it often existed alongside and informed more structured systems of knowledge. This fusion of cosmic order and earthly stability reveals a layer of intention we are only just beginning to appreciate. For these master builders, the universe was not a separate realm. It was a direct influence on the safety and harmony of their world. Their architecture was a physical prayer, meticulously aligned with the paths of the sun, moon, and stars. The Great Pyramid of Giza's near-perfect cardinal orientation is a feat that still astounds surveyors. While the spiritual significance is profound, some researchers suggest such precise alignments may have offered a hidden, practical benefit. By situating a massive structure along the Earth's fundamental axis, builders could have been unknowingly positioning it to better resist the directional forces of seismic waves, which often travel along predictable geological pathways. This was not merely symbolism, it was a form of integrated design where celestial harmony reinforced terrestrial resilience. This principle extended across the globe. The vast temple complex of Angkor Wat in Cambodia is a terrestrial map of the Hindu cosmos, its layout mirroring celestial patterns. This sacred geometry, dictated by age-old cosmological texts, may have also guided its construction onto a massive, stable sandstone base, a geological anchor that has helped it endure for nearly a millennium. In China, this holistic philosophy was formalized into the art of Feng Shui, the practice of arranging spaces to achieve harmony with the natural flow of energy, or Qi. A site with good Qi was not just spiritually auspicious, it was almost always geologically sound, situated on stable ground, protected from landslides, and blessed with good drainage, all critical factors for seismic safety. The spiritual and the practical were two sides of the same coin, a unified system of knowledge that ensured a building was not just structurally sound, but spiritually anchored to its place in the world. This deep, symbolic connection to the earth and sky was then made manifest through the very process of construction, a ritual that turned labor into a form of reverence. The precise art of fitting stones without mortar was more than a construction technique, it was a spiritual discipline. The master Inca stonemason did not simply teach an apprentice how to carve granite, he guided him through a ritual of perception, of learning to see the hidden lock and key within two seemingly mismatched stones. This knowledge was a sacred trust passed down within family lineages or closed guilds, where the secrets of seismic jointing were guarded as closely as religious mysteries. In Japan, the construction of a temple or pagoda was a ceremony in itself, with each stage marked by Shinto rituals that purified the site and blessed the materials. The intricate wooden joinery, cut with absolute precision to allow a building to sway, was a skill learned over decades of patient observation and practice. These methods were too vital to be left to chance or written in plain language. Instead, they were often encoded within myths and epic poems. A story about a god binding the earth together might carry allegorical instructions for foundation laying, or a sacred text might describe the ideal proportions of a building in cosmological terms, ensuring that the geometric principles of stability were preserved for generations. This ritualized framework transformed technical skill into a living cultural tradition. It guaranteed that the sophisticated understanding of how to make a wall dance with an earthquake was applied with unwavering consistency, project after project, century after century. The physical resilience of the stone was mirrored by the social resilience of the knowledge system itself. But the ultimate validation of this ancient genius did not lie in the rituals or the teachings, but in the brutal, unscripted test of the centuries. The silent stones themselves hold a detailed record of every tremor they have weathered. A growing scientific field called archaeoseismology acts as a translator for this stone archive, reading the subtle and dramatic marks left by ancient earthquakes on the very ruins we study. Scientists in this discipline act as forensic engineers for the past, meticulously examining the evidence, a cracked lintel here, a slightly displaced wall there, or the distinct pattern of repairs made centuries ago. Each of these clues helps reconstruct the intensity of a long-forgotten seismic event, and more importantly, reveals exactly how the structure responded to that violence. For instance, at the Roman site of Hierapolis in Turkey, the ruins tell a stark story of survival and failure. Archaeoseismologists can identify buildings from different eras that experienced the same powerful quake. Some structures built with specific techniques like flexible timber lacing show only minor repairable damage. Others, perhaps constructed during a period when this knowledge was forgotten or ignored, lie in complete collapse right beside them. This is not theoretical, it is tangible proof written directly into the rubble, confirming that the ancient methods were not just clever ideas, they were demonstrably effective. The performance review is in, and it spans millennia. These lessons, literally set in stone, provide the most compelling evidence we have that ancient seismic design was not merely adequate, but in many cases superior to modern non-seismic construction. This historical data, this proven track record of resilience, is now catching the attention of a new generation of engineers who are looking to the past to build a safer future. The echoes of ancient wisdom are now formally recognized in the blueprints of our most advanced buildings. That revolutionary idea of base isolation, where a structure is deliberately separated from its shaking foundation, is a direct descendant of Incan gravel beds and the suspended heart of a Japanese pagoda. Modern engineers achieve this with sophisticated layers of synthetic rubber and steel, but the underlying principle is identical: to allow a building to sway as a single, controlled unit rather than be torn apart by the ground's violent motion. This marks a profound shift in our approach to seismic safety. For much of the 20th century, the goal was often to build structures strong enough and rigid enough to resist an earthquake's force. Now, the paradigm has swung back toward the ancient philosophy of flexibility, of designing buildings that can dance with the tremors. This is why you will find massive, heavy pendulums, called tuned mass dampers, swaying at the top of skyscrapers to cancel out wind and seismic energy, a high-tech evolution of the principles seen in ancient obelisks and Stonehenge. Engineers no longer view sites like Machu Picchu merely as ruins, but as invaluable, full-scale laboratories. These structures have undergone the most rigorous testing protocol imaginable, centuries of real earthquakes, providing performance data that no computer model can fully replicate. This convergence of timeless intuition and precise modern science is forging a new, more resilient future for construction. Yet, even as we adopt these principles, some aspects of the ancient builders' art remain just beyond our grasp. We can analyze the geometry of an Inca wall and understand its physics, but we cannot fully replicate the generations of nuanced, hands-on knowledge required to select the perfect stone and shape it with such impossible precision. That deep, cultivated intimacy with material and place is a secret the stones have kept for themselves. Even with all our modern tools and knowledge, some ancient techniques defy simple explanation. Consider the colossal stone blocks at places like Baalbek in Lebanon or Ollantaytambo in Peru. These are not just large stones, they are behemoths, some weighing hundreds of tons, yet they are cut and fitted with a precision that seems almost impossible. How did builders working with stone and bronze tools achieve such exacting seams, and why did they go to such incredible effort? The prevailing view is that this was the pinnacle of a long, painstaking tradition of craftsmanship. Yet the sheer scale and accuracy fuel ongoing debates. Were these methods purely the result of accumulated, hands-on knowledge passed down through generations, or did they employ some form of sophisticated technology that has since been lost to history? This is not just an academic question, it strikes at the heart of what we believe ancient people were capable of achieving. Adding to the puzzle are the mysterious metal clamps found in ancient structures across the world, from the Andes to Southeast Asia. These clamps, often made of bronze or a unique iron alloy, were used to bind massive stones together. The conventional explanation is that they served as alignment pins during construction, holding blocks in place until the wall was complete. However, some researchers propose a more dynamic function. Could these metal clamps have also acted as a form of flexible reinforcement? In a seismic event, the metal, possessing a different flexibility than stone, might have allowed for minute movement and energy absorption before settling back into place. The debate continues between those who see these as brilliant but understandable applications of empirical knowledge, and those who wonder if they represent a deeper, more sophisticated understanding of material science and seismic dynamics than we have credited them with. These are not merely historical curiosities. They are profound reminders that the ingenuity of the past is not fully decoded. The stones of Baalbek and the metal clamps of Angkor Wat stand as silent, enduring challenges to our modern assumptions. They push the boundaries of our current knowledge, suggesting that ancient builders may have possessed insights we are only beginning to rediscover. This sense of mystery is not a dead end, but an open invitation. It urges us to look at these ruins with fresh eyes, to see them not as static relics, but as active teachers holding secrets that could very well inform the next leap in how we build for a volatile planet. The conversation between the past and the future is far from over. This philosophical divergence reveals a fundamental choice in how we confront the Earth's power. Modern seismic engineering is a triumph of prediction and control. It relies on complex computer models that simulate the force of a hypothetical earthquake and then design structures, often from steel and reinforced concrete, to be strong enough to withstand those calculated forces. The goal is resistance, creating a building so rigid and robust that it can, in theory, oppose the tremor and remain standing. This approach gives us towering skyscrapers and vast bridges, but it has a critical vulnerability. In a truly massive seismic event, the very strength of these materials can become a liability. Reinforced concrete is designed to crack in a controlled way, but if the shaking exceeds its design limits, the steel inside can bend and the concrete can crumble, leading to catastrophic, irreparable failure. The building may not collapse, but it is often left as a permanent loss, a hollow shell that must be demolished. The ancient path was entirely different. Their philosophy was not rooted in resistance, but in acceptance and redirection. Without complex mathematics, they designed for flexibility and redundancy. They understood that you cannot stop the Earth from moving, so you must build something that can move with it. Think of it as the difference between a sturdy oak tree and a flexible blade of grass in a hurricane. The oak resists until it snaps. The grass bends to the ground and then springs back. The ancient builder's goal was to create the architectural equivalent of that blade of grass. Their structures were designed to absorb the earthquake's energy through countless tiny, non-destructive movements: the grating of interlocking stones, the sway of a wooden frame, the shifting of a gravel bed. When the shaking stopped, the building might be slightly unsettled, but its core integrity remained. It was bruised, perhaps, but not broken. This inherent resilience meant that repairs were often local and straightforward, a matter of repositioning stones or replacing a few timber elements. The structure itself could be reused for generations, its life extended rather than terminated by a seismic event. This comparison exposes a potential blind spot in our contemporary practice. Our over-reliance on material strength and computational models can sometimes come at the expense of holistic, flexible design. We build for a predicted force, but the ancient builders built for an unpredictable Earth. Their legacy challenges us to look beyond mere strength and reconsider the profound wisdom of building structures that are not just strong, but are also intelligent, repairable, and deeply in harmony with the natural forces they must endure. That blueprint for resilience, born from a deep partnership with the environment, now speaks directly to our most pressing global challenges. Our modern world faces a dual crisis: the escalating impacts of climate change and the rapid growth of cities in some of the planet's most earthquake-prone regions. In this context, the ancient approach is not a historical curiosity. It is an urgent and practical guide. They built with local materials, stone from the nearby quarry, timber from the surrounding forest, dramatically reducing the energy required for transportation. Their construction processes relied on human skill rather than fossil fuels, and their designs were inherently sustainable because they had to be. They were built to last for centuries, not just for decades. This stands in stark contrast to the disposable nature of much modern construction, where buildings are often designed with a limited lifespan in mind. The ancient model offers a powerful argument for building for permanence, for creating structures that are assets for generations, not liabilities that will one day fill a landfill. This philosophy of durable, low-impact building holds incredible promise for affordable housing in developing nations, many of which are located along major fault lines. Integrating ancient principles like flexible timber frames or rubble trench foundations, which isolate a building from soil movement, could create homes that are both culturally resonant and far more likely to protect families when the ground shakes. The past offers a vital key to building a safer future, but this leads to a poignant question. If this knowledge was so powerful, why was so much of it ever lost to begin with? The very ground these ancient builders stood upon was often more stable than the flow of history itself. A civilization's most brilliant ideas can be as fragile as a parchment in a storm, vulnerable to the tides of conquest and the quiet erasure of time. When the Roman Empire fragmented, it took with it the sophisticated understanding of Pozzolana concrete, a material that had defied earthquakes for centuries. The intricate recipes and engineering principles detailed by Vitruvius faded from common knowledge, leading to a long period in Europe where architectural ambition often outstripped technical understanding, resulting in structures far more vulnerable to the Earth's tremors. This loss was not always a slow fade. Sometimes it was a deliberate act. The Spanish conquest of the Andes systematically dismantled the Incan social order, a system where the knowledge of polygonal masonry was a sacred trust passed from master to apprentice. By suppressing these traditions, the conquistadors did more than just subjugate a people. They severed a direct line of seismic wisdom that had been cultivated over 1,000 years. The surviving walls of Machu Picchu stand not only as a testament to Incan genius, but as a silent monument to a vast body of knowledge that was nearly erased. These historical ruptures teach us a sobering lesson. Resilience is not just about building strong structures, but about protecting the fragile ecosystems of knowledge that make such building possible. Every time a unique engineering tradition disappears, humanity's collective toolkit for survival shrinks. This is why the modern effort to decode these ancient methods is so vital. It is not archaeology for its own sake, but a crucial recovery mission for ideas that our global community desperately needs. The stones that have withstood the test of time now challenge us to ensure that the intelligence behind them does not vanish from the world a second time. This respect for ancient wisdom is more than an academic exercise. It is a fundamental ethical responsibility. As we uncover these engineering marvels, we must remember that the stones of Machu Picchu or the timber joints of a Japanese pagoda are not simply artifacts in a museum. They are part of the living, breathing heritage of descendant communities. For them, this knowledge is not a historical footnote, but a core part of their cultural identity and continuity. Approaching this legacy with the mindset of a collector, extracting information without context or permission, repeats the patterns of the past. The truly transformative research happening today is collaborative, built on partnerships between international scientists and local experts, elders, and craftspeople. This model recognizes indigenous knowledge as a sophisticated intellectual tradition in its own right, one that holds answers to questions we are only just learning to ask. It challenges us to rethink who gets to be an authority on the past. The master stonemason in a Peruvian village, whose family has worked with granite for generations, possesses a practical, tactile understanding that no visiting archaeologist can match. By listening to these voices, we do more than just gather data. We honor a lineage of genius. This shift also forces a reckoning with long-held narratives of technological progress. For centuries, Western science often framed ancient achievements as mysterious anomalies or attributed them to outside influences, unable to reconcile sophisticated engineering with civilizations it labeled as primitive. To fully credit the Inca or the Minoans for their seismic brilliance is to dismantle this outdated hierarchy. It acknowledges that intelligence and innovation are universal human traits, not the exclusive property of any one culture or era. This ethical stance is not merely about giving credit where it is due. It is a practical necessity for unlocking a fuller understanding of our world. When we dismiss or appropriate these knowledge systems, we risk losing invaluable solutions. The very principles that kept ancient cities standing for 1,000 years could be the key to building more resilient communities today, especially in developing nations facing the dual threats of climate change and seismic risk. By approaching the past with humility and partnership, we ensure that this recovered wisdom benefits all of humanity, weaving threads of ancient insight into the fabric of our shared future. And the remarkable thing is, you do not need to be an engineer to start seeing these principles at work. You can walk right up to these ancient walls and touch the same stones that danced through earthquakes centuries ago. For any traveler with an interest in history or engineering, visiting these sites is not just a tour, it is a masterclass in resilience. At Machu Picchu, you are encouraged to gently place your hands on the iconic polygonal walls. Feel the seamless joints where massive stones interlock, walls that have never collapsed despite the region's powerful tremors. That cool, unyielding granite under your fingertips is a direct physical link to the Inca stonemasons who solved a problem we are still grappling with today. Across the world in Japan, the Horyuji Temple complex offers a different but equally profound lesson. Its 5-story pagoda, the oldest wooden building on Earth, has been standing for over 1,300 years. Look up at its graceful, sweeping eaves and consider the invisible Shinbashera pillar at its core, the hidden pendulum that has allowed it to sway through countless quakes without falling. Then there is Istanbul's Hagia Sophia, a monument that embodies layers of seismic wisdom. This colossal dome represents the pinnacle of Roman and later Byzantine engineering, a structure that has withstood major earthquakes for 15 centuries. As you explore these places, move beyond simply taking photographs. Train your eye to look for the specific signatures of ancient engineering. Seek out the trapezoidal doorways that grow narrower at the top, a hallmark of stability. Notice the irregular, jigsaw-like stonework that lacks any mortar. Look closely for patches of different colored stone or brick, evidence of ancient repairs that tell a story of a structure that was damaged but was cherished and restored, its life extended over generations. Standing in the shadow of these achievements does something a textbook cannot. It forges a powerful, personal connection to the innovative spirit of the ancient world, reminding us that true genius is often written in a language of stone and timber that anyone can understand. The silent wisdom of ancient stones is now meeting the precise language of artificial intelligence. This is not a replacement of old knowledge, but its exciting evolution. Researchers are employing high-definition three-dimensional laser scanning to capture every minute detail of Inca polygonal walls, creating digital twins with sub-millimeter accuracy. These vast data sets are then fed into machine learning algorithms, which search for patterns our eyes might miss. The goal is to decode the hidden rules of that legendary seismic dance, to understand exactly how the complex geometry of each stone contributes to the wall's overall flexibility. Once these principles are fully understood, they can be translated into computational models, allowing modern engineers to design new types of masonry or even 3D printed structures that embody the same ancient intelligence of interlocking, energy-dissipating forms. This digital archaeology is breathing new life into old stones, turning their empirical success into a formal, replicable science. Simultaneously, material scientists are looking beyond geometry to substance. They are developing advanced composite materials, blends of polymers and fibers that replicate the behavior of ancient timber-laced masonry. Imagine a modern building block, not rigid and brittle, but with a built-in flexibility, capable of absorbing shock, much like those Hittite walls with wood woven through their stone fabric. This convergence points toward a revolutionary new ideal for architecture, the regenerative building. Inspired by ancient precedents, these structures would be designed from the outset to be adaptable and repairable. Their components could be easily disassembled and replaced after a seismic event, and their materials would be chosen for longevity and low environmental impact, mirroring the ancient commitment to building for centuries, not just decades. This powerful fusion of timeless intuition and cutting-edge innovation promises a future where our buildings are not just safe shelters, but active, resilient partners with the planet. This forward-looking synthesis is the ultimate tribute to the master builders of the past, proving that their deepest lessons are only now beginning to fully reveal their potential. These ancient builders achieved something truly timeless. Their legacy is a profound testament to human ingenuity, a powerful reminder that our greatest strength often lies in our ability to adapt and observe. From the interlocking stones of the Incas to the swaying pagodas of Japan, these techniques represent a pinnacle of empirical engineering, perfected not in a laboratory but through centuries of patient learning. They have withstood the ultimate test, enduring generations of tectonic violence that would level many modern structures. The central lesson is as elegant as it is enduring. True resilience rarely comes from rigid resistance. It emerges from flexibility, from a willingness to yield and move in harmony with forces far greater than ourselves. These builders did not see the earth as an enemy to be conquered, but as a powerful partner to be understood. They worked with the grain of nature, not against it, and in doing so, they created monuments that have lasted for 1,000 years. As we confront our own global challenges, from climate change to rapid urbanization in seismic zones, these ancient lessons in sustainability and durability have never been more relevant. They call on us to build for the long term, to use resources wisely, and to design with a humility that accepts the dynamic nature of our planet. Let this knowledge inspire you to look at the ancient world with a new and profound respect. See those silent ruins not as relics of a primitive past, but as libraries of forgotten wisdom, holding blueprints for a safer and more resilient future. If this journey into the mysteries of ancient engineering has fascinated you, there are countless more stories waiting to be uncovered. Subscribe to continue exploring history's greatest puzzles and the remarkable innovations that shaped our world.